How to tell if an ENFJ is falling in love with you. Now, a couple disclaimers here. One, I don't speak for all ENFJs. And two, this is a difficult question that does not have a straightforward answer, but it is a question that I do believe that people are asking. If you haven't already seen it, I will link somewhere either below and probably there. Yeah, not there. I already made a video about how to tell if an ENFJ likes you. But what I want to talk about in this video is that how to tell if an ENFJ likes you is completely different from how to tell if an ENFJ loves you or is falling in love with you. And that's because it's like, okay, an ENFJ will use their FE, their extroverted feeling, pretty freely if they don't have strong, deep feelings for you yet, or maybe they just don't have them at all and won't ever have them. And so the way an ENFJ acts if they like you or have a crush on you might seem intense because, like I mentioned in the other video, if an ENFJ likes you, they might tell you, or they might be really friendly to you, or they might talk to you, or it might be kind of obvious. But that's not an indicator necessarily that they love you or have strong feelings or yeah. And okay, the last disclaimer though I did really want to make is that the only way to know if somebody likes you is to ask. And the only way to be sure that they like you is if they tell you, or if they, that's really the only way. And looking at body language and looking at all these signs is fun, whatever, but you really don't know unless you ask, because people express their emotions completely differently, even amongst all the ENFJs. I've noticed a pattern, though, that ENFJs do when they are falling in love, and I'm going to get into that. But I just want you guys to understand that every person's different and is going to express their emotions differently. Some people pull back when they really care. Some people initiate and move forward. Some people do both, so it looks like they're playing games with you. Sometimes they actually are playing games with you and they're only showing emotion because they want to get you to stick around. But if an ENFJ is falling in love with you, then they very well might revert back to their sort of shadow self of an INFP. Now, why is an INFP the ENFJ's shadow self? If you might have heard of this theory before, but for those of you who have not, essentially, so since ENFJs use FE, NI, SE, and TI, INFPs use FI, NE, SI, and TE, which is like the shadow, like the flipped over version of an ENFJ. And those 4 functions that an INFP uses are not conscious in an ENFJ, but we all use all 8 functions. So if an ENFJ is falling in love, then they might feel like they're being flipped over and they're stuck in INFP mode, like their shadow self mode. Like they might feel like their shadow functions are taking over. The main one of this would be being introverted feeling, where normally ENFJs feel pretty in control of their relationships because that's the thing they value. If an ENFJ doesn't feel in control of their relationships, and that's going to be a big issue for them, because all ENFJs, no matter who you are, they're going to be using extroverted feeling as their top function. They're going to want to sort of control their external environment and their emotional environment to make sure that it is harmonious for them or reflects their values or whatever. And so with most people, they are pretty aware of how they stand with where they stand with them. They want to know where they stand with each person, and so they want to know what's going on. Like if you're talking to a romantic interest or even just to the opposite sex, or if you are interested in the same sex, that would work as well. But if you're interested, if you're talking to someone that in some way, shape, or form might be seen as a prospect, an ENFJ would want to know where they stand with that person, whether it be I'm friend zoning this person, or I am putting them in this box of just for casual purposes, or I'm putting you in this box for someone that I might want to date a little bit but not sure, we could just be flirty friends, or this box of like, oh my god, like I want to marry you, you're perfect. Like, it's like, I think honestly that ENFJs put people in boxes a lot, which isn't that great, you know, but we kind of sum people up quickly and can kind of tell like who you are going to be to me, because FE is focused on the relations between people. And so we'll think like, okay, well, this is family, or this is an acquaintance, or this is a close friend. And with people of interest, and see, it's hard because I want to say, oh, people of the opposite sex, but I mean, I'm inclusive to being of the same sex, which is interesting. I'm technically bisexual. I have dated a girl before, but I still only do this when it comes to the opposite sex, which I don't know. But anyway, maybe that's just social conditioning, where like, even if I'm talking to someone of the opposite sex, like if I'm talking to a man and I'm not interested, I still would be like, all right, they are just a friend, I am friend zoning them, or something. Like, anyway, but so my point, getting to the point, is that ENFJs are going to be aware of the relationships with people, and they don't really tend to like gray areas at all. So if someone is treating you like a friend, but then also treating you like they're flirting with you, but then they're also putting you back in friend box or whatever, that is going to stress an ENFJ out. And so an ENFJ won't really want to do that to another person. And so that's why if they have a crush on someone, or if they like someone, link to, or referring to the video that I did before, like what I said, if they like someone, they're gonna try and get to know them, and they're going to be like asking them questions, or wanting to hang out, or seeming interested, or making an investment in the relationship. But they're gonna do all that to feel the person out, but they're gonna do that almost prematurely, before they like them, before they have strong feelings. This is like showing interest. I think that ENFJs don't have much of an issue showing interest, but when they do have an issue is looking like they need, or looking like vulnerable in any way. And I mean, this has been hard for me to grasp. If you're an ENFJ, please comment below, let me know your thoughts on this. But I always refer to myself as a super open, vulnerable person, and in many ways I am. But in some ways, I am afraid of being vulnerable. I enjoy whenever I have the control over the relationship. Hello, sorry, I got a phone call, and so that got interrupted. But essentially, to be vulnerable means that it is different for different people, and a lot of the behaviors that ENFJs portray might seem vulnerable because we wear our heart on our sleeve, but for us, being an ENFJ, wearing your heart on your sleeve is really not that difficult for us because it's what comes natural. And so my point in all of this is that what feels vulnerable for an ENFJ would be to sort of dig deeper into what you really feel, and not just sort of play the sort of FE game of like, hey, how are you? Do you want to hang out? Great. Like, oh, you're cool, whatever. Like, all that sort of talking stuff. ENFJs can feel pretty in control in certain moments when you're just talking, because they can read your emotions. And so some people might get really nervous in the sort of getting to know you conversations or whatever. But ENFJs typically, like, it's going to be different based on your past experience and based on how afraid of rejection you are or whatever. It's going to be different, but the moment that an ENFJ loves you or is falling in love with you or has deep, deep feelings for you that is maybe not quite love yet, is whenever they feel like they are kind of out of control of the situation. Like, they feel like their emotions are all of the sudden not attached to the external world, and all of a sudden it's something that is much, much deeper that you cannot control. And I think that in that moment, it's when an ENFJ kind of reverts to an INFP sort of behavior, and their introverted feeling that is subconscious really flares up and starts controlling their behavior, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And this is when I've noticed that for me, whenever I've gotten real feelings for people, then I would have a tendency to like hide my face or just giggle or laugh for no reason when there's no one around, and then like hide my face in shame, or do these other sort of like weird, like cutesy, giddy behaviors that I don't normally do, because that would be like losing control. That would be letting the emotion just happen, even if it doesn't make sense, or even if it doesn't feel like it flows with what should be felt. And ENFJs like to think about what should be felt. And so the moment that they actually love you or have deep, deep, deep feelings for you, even if love hasn't had a chance to grow yet, like the feeling that shit gets real, that's when their introverted feeling just pops up. And once that starts controlling their behavior, then they're going to start almost acting like an introverted feeler around you and treat you differently than they treat everyone else. So what I mean by that is that you, like, let's say you already decided that the ENFJ kind of likes you based on watching my other video, and you saw, oh, they show interest, they're friendly, they seem like they want to get to know me, they touch me sometimes, they like talk to me, you know. But if they stop doing that, and if they start to turn off that charm a little bit, then that is a huge sign that maybe their feelings have sort of shifted, where now all of a sudden they're nervous about what you think of them. Now all of a sudden they feel like, oh, maybe it doesn't make sense to like you or to show an interest in you, but I feel that way anyway, and now I'm stupid for thinking that, and now I have to act like I don't care. There might be that shift that happens. And another thing is that if you are dating this person, if you guys are in a committed relationship, then I think that a lot of ENFJs will sort of act this way, this sort of INFP, FI style way around the 2 to 6 month mark, where shit is about to get real, and it sort of feels like this peak point where, like, all right, like, I have to let all of my walls down. They have to accept all of me, and if they don't accept all of me, then what am I going to do? And like, that's when you might see like the hiding of the face, like the FI style, like, oh no, I don't want to text back too quick. Because the thing is that most ENFJs are seen as clingy and extra and emotional and just out there. And a lot of ENFJs are used to being misinterpreted in this way. Whenever ENFJs are showing emotional interest, a lot of people might have wanted them to turn it down a notch, like, you're too much, you're too intense, you're too like, you're showing too much interest, that sort of thing, whenever they thought that they were just being friendly. That sort of friendliness and intention behind their actions can turn some people off. And so depending on their past experience, which I do think that it is likely a pattern, that there is a lot of ENFJs that have felt like they were too much, or that, oh, people thought they were too loving, or they felt obligated. If a lot of times it's like ENFJs are giving their love to you, and then the other person feels obligated, and then it just doesn't work out. A lot of times, though, it's like that past experience has influenced the way that an ENFJ acts now whenever things get real. Because if things get real, then they don't... What am I trying to say? Really, the main point of this video is that I want it to be known that ENFJs, when they are in love, are going to act quite different than ENFJs that have a crush on someone. Because if they feel a really deep-rooted, introverted feeling, emotion that they know is there forever, they're going to maybe want to try and hide it, because that's going to feel vulnerable to them. Just having an FE desire of, oh, I feel like seeing this person, is not that scary for an ENFJ. And when I say fleeting, I mean extroverted feeling. It means objective, external emotion that's based on the external world. We all know what extroverted feeling is, I believe. If we see that, an ENFJ knows that their feelings are there to stay whenever that fleeting FE desire just keeps coming. Like, if you think, oh, I sort of feel like hanging out with this person, I'm going to text them and see if they want to hang out. That's not a big deal. But if you have that feeling over and over in your head for weeks, months, years, just, oh my God, I want to talk to them. Oh my God, I still want to talk to them. Or, oh, I still want to go hang out with them. If that is just going over and over and over and over, then that's whenever like an FE user is going to conclude that, okay, there must be something more here. Because a lot of times ENFJs, we're just used to going off of what our desire is in the moment with FE and SE. But it's only whenever you discover that there's a deep-rooted introverted feeling, foundation to that feeling, that then it starts to get scary. It gets scary. ENFJs are scared whenever they realize that, you know, maybe they aren't in control of the situation. Maybe their soul, or maybe somewhere deep down, they just really love this person, even when it doesn't make sense. Or there's the flip side. There's sometimes where an ENFJ wants to like a person but doesn't, because that feeling isn't there. That's also scary. But you'll know that an ENFJ loves you, or is falling in love with you, or has deeper feelings for you when their introverted feeling switches on, and they might start to act more confusing and more back and forth with you, more hiding their emotions, more waiting to see what you're gonna do, only because they don't want to get hurt. And most of the time, ENFJs are okay with taking the lead, asking someone out, asking someone to hang out, complimenting that. But it's like the more they start to care, the less they're going to be that outward focused. But this isn't always the case. So don't be like nervous if like, oh no, I guess the ENFJ that's talking to me doesn't have strong feelings for you. Because a lot of times if they are really intentional, like I want to see you, or I want to whatever, then that means that their NI knows that there could be a strong feeling, but it just might not be there yet. And so don't like be worried like if an ENFJ is being very extra in their expressions towards you. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means that they might not yet. Or maybe they just have never been rejected in their life and they're not afraid of this, which I find that really hard to believe, because I think that ENFJs are very bold sort of personalities that doesn't mesh well with most personalities. and is oftentimes misunderstood and rejected. And most ENFJs, I would guarantee, have a lot of trauma and pain surrounding the fact of being rejected or misunderstood by someone for just wearing their heart on their sleeve, because so many people don't do that. A lot of people don't wear their heart on their sleeve, and so a lot of ENFJs have a lot of pain from that. But if they give a shit about you, then they just might start acting a little weird, okay? And I wish I could tell you the rhyme or reason, but I don't know, because it's subconscious FI taking over. And it feels really strong, because if you subscribe to Socionics, which I do, there's FI ignoring, but FI is strong in an ENFJ, even though it's ignoring and even though it's subconscious. And if an ENFJ really, really likes you, then that FI is going to get so strong that they can't ignore it anymore. And they're going to just burst and explode, and they're going to have to tell you somehow, or they're going to have to tell you how nervous they feel or something. Like, they're going to have to do something to release that stress. So it might come in the form of telling you. So I'm not saying that every external expression means that they don't have a strong feeling, but if they do really like you, and then they're deciding to tell you how they feel about you, then that is going to take a lot of effort to get over that hump of that emotion, because that is scary. But yeah, the behavior is just, it might be more elusive and confusing if they like you, because they're gonna feel like they have this sort of volatile emotion within that they don't know how to control. But ENFJs are used to controlling all of their emotional expressions, and they're used to controlling how they come off to people. And if they have an emotion within them that they can't understand, then they aren't going to be able to express it very well. Honestly, ESTPs and ISTPs are kind of like this if they like someone, where they won't really understand where the root of the emotion is coming from, and they're going to seem really back and forth with you. You might see an ENFJ act like this a little bit as well. But they're going to really try and not be back and forth, because they don't want to be back and forth. But essentially, introverted feeling is a lot more foreign and volatile, and ENFJs prefer expressing in a way that you could predict what is going to happen next. You could predict what to expect from them. And if they really like you, though, then there's going to be emotions inside that aren't very predictable. So if you're an ENFJ watching this, then that's one thing that you have to remember, is that if you are truly falling in love with someone, then it's not going to feel predictable. So yeah, I think that that's really it with this video. I hope that this gave some insight. No, I didn't answer the question clearly or directly, but for anyone that was curious about the subject, I hope this sheds some light on how an ENFJ might act a little bit differently if they have a big fat crush on you, or like they really have the feels for you, versus if they like you. Because I'd say it's pretty easy for an ENFJ to like someone, and at least for me, I don't even view it as that big of a deal to have a crush on someone, because I have a crush on like lots of people most of the time. And just to have a crush on someone doesn't mean that you have strong feelings for them. It just means that you're intrigued by them. It doesn't say anything about your attachment or your emotions for them. But a lot of ENFJs have trauma whenever they actually do love someone, because they're afraid that they're going to be misinterpreted the way that they have been whenever they've expressed that they have emotions for someone that was just like a crush or something. Anyway, so if you do think an ENFJ loves you, they probably are acting a little bit weird, more so that, and I just want to say really quick, I know I've probably been just saying the same thing over and over, but every single time I've been in a relationship, even though I knew that the person liked me because they said they did, whenever I sort of felt like I reached like a point of no return, where like, all right, no matter what happens with this person, they're going to be in my heart no matter what. Even if we part ways, they just are there. They've planted a little seed. then that's whenever I get a little scared, because, but it's like the beginning getting to know you stuff that isn't really that big of a deal for me. But then once like it gets real, it's hard. And then I might pull back a little, I might hide a little, or I might have some walls up or whatever. And I think that most ENFJs do this, but it's weird because introverted feelers like FPs, they sort of like have the walls up and then they gradually put them down. But ENFJs don't really have the walls and then they put them up. And so, I don't know. If you agree with that, let me know. Thanks for watching this video, and if you're interested, please support me on Patreon, which I'll have below, and also join my Facebook group, Personality Typology for Self-Growth. I will have that linked below as well, and have a lovely day.